Hello everyone, welcome back to my living room. I am working on the layer, so don't worry, that'll be a new setting and you don't have to look at all my junk in the background. So you already know what's coming at you because you read the description and all of this, but let's just for the sake of make believe, let's all pretend that you have no idea what's going to happen and what I'm going to talk about here, and just close your eyes for a moment, if you will. And imagine, if you would, a world where every single person carries incredibly powerful and deadly weapons with them wherever they go. And that includes places like banks, government offices, just out shopping. And every single child is given one of these weapons at age 11 and then is sent to school for 7 years to learn how to use it. Now, if you're thinking this is rural Nevada, well, you're not too far off. But no, we're not talking about the Gun Nuts Dreamland, not really. Instead, of course, as you already know, this is the wizarding world that was created by J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter. And of course, I'm also not talking about guns necessarily when we're talking about the deadly weapons. I think actually in the books, the wizards will sometimes, be baffled by firearms and things like this that the muggles have. No, in fact, we're talking about the magic wand, right? I mean, this is just a dowel that I use when I dress up as a wizard and pretend to be one. No, it has no powers or anything like that. But I don't know. Sometimes it makes me feel cool to just wave it around and that kind of thing. I'm going to put it down. But no, I mean, we don't need the firearms in the wizarding world. We have the wands, right? And what's funny about this is that everyone in the wizarding world seems to get along just fine, considering that everyone is armed with deadly force at any time. And in fact, if we're making a comparison, I'm fairly certain that the magic wand is quite a bit more deadly than your average firearm, right? I mean, even a rifle or a hunting rifle or something like that, which is a very powerful weapon. I think a wizarding wand is even more powerful, and I say that because that Avada Kedavra curse. I'm fairly certain you could, I'm fairly certain you could correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain that, there's no winging somebody with it, right? You can't just, get hit in the arm and be like, oh, darn, that arm's dead, right? It's like you get hit at all, you're dead. And apparently there's no counter curse. There's no real blocking it in that kind of business, right? There's no real such thing as wizarding body armor, I guess. Well, there's kind of an allusion to cloaks that the Weasley twins make, but anyway, we'll get to that someday later on, maybe. In any case, what got me off on this is that it's really been something that's been wafting around the back of my mind for years. But my wife, she actually bought me the box set of Harry Potter books for Easter this year. Which was kind of embarrassing because I didn't know we were supposed to get each other Easter gifts. And so she said, here you go. And I didn't have anything to give to her. I got her a really awesome Pentecost gift, though. So she doesn't have anything to complain about anymore. Anyway, so I'm about halfway through the last book as I'm reading this, and this is what kind of got me into it because it's it's kind of like there's a scene here, and I'm going to describe it to you in a moment that just kind of like blows your mind. So in the Deathly Hallows, right, the book, not the film, maybe the film. I'll have to rewatch the film again. But anyway, in the book, there's a scene where Harry is essentially reliving Voldemort's memory of murdering Harry's parents. It's pretty dark. It's a pretty awful scene in all of this. It's at the end of chapter 17 if you want to read it for yourself. And it essentially starts off with Voldemort looking through the window at Harry's father playing with baby Harry by puffing smoke from his wand, right? Now remember, by the way, that this is the same instrument that can kill with a simple, abracadabra. Let me digress for just a moment and say, is it weird to anybody else that Rowling chose abracadabra to be the killing curse? I mean, I was going to do some, fake magic for you and pull a rabbit out of a hat, but I'd feel bad for the rabbit now. Anyway, anyway, Harry's father, right, then he leaves his wand on the couch, right? He just kind of like throws it on the couch, and when Voldemort breaks in to murder everyone, Harry's dad goes to hold off Voldemort, and Voldemort's actual thought is, and I quote, I'm quoting Rowling now, "Hold him off without a wand in his hand?" He laughed before casting the curse. Of course, it's the Abracadabra curse that kills people. Just after this, when Voldemort murders Harry's mother, the story progresses thusly, and I quote again, "He climbed the steps, listening with faint amusement to her attempts to barricade herself in. She had no wand upon her either. How stupid they were, and how trusting, thinking that their safety lay in friends, that weapons could be discarded even for moments." And then he breaks in and murders Harry's mom and backfires a curse on himself that essentially creates the whole story for all of the books and all of that. Now, imagine for a moment, if you will, the scene going another way, right? So let's pretend that Voldemort breaks down the door and Harry's dad gives the warning, grabs his wand immediately, and then is able to distract Voldemort long enough for Harry's mom to blast Voldemort with her own killing spell. Hey presto, Harry grows up in a loving family. And we wouldn't have the books. It's one of those things, you know? You want poor Harry to have his family. But I really enjoy the books. And of course, instead, what we have in this scene is essentially a home invasion with premeditated murder. And again, what's funny is that the only thing that could have prevented this from happening was a deadly weapon and proper training. At least that is according to Voldemort himself. And seriously, I mean, again, if we tell the same story in Muggle terms, it's essentially the same. If a person right now busted down your door with the intent of murdering your son, maybe the whole family, I mean, the killer's a sociopath after all, I truly and honestly, from the bottom of my heart, hope that you possess and can effectively use the most effective defensive tool that we Muggles possess, and that is, of course, the gun. What gun you have, I mean, that's up to you and all that kind of business, and if it's not something that you would prefer to have in your house for whatever reason, maybe you don't want your child playing with and all of that, well, I can respect that too, but I would like you to be able to defend yourself if Voldemort ever comes after you. Wonder how Voldemort could defend himself. I'm sure there's a way to defend yourself against gunshots in the wizarding world. There's got to be, right? That might be a speculative episode one of these days. So anyway, all of this, I guess, is what convinces me that there's a huge pro-Second Amendment subtext to the entire world that Rowling created. I don't know if it was conscious or not. I mean, many a time these things aren't really all that conscious. Just like, oh, crap. Yeah, I just created, an NRA member's wonderland, right? And essentially, it's not very odd either in certain terms if we're equating guns to wands. You can't really, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but, in the stories, and there's so many different things that you could start looking at and saying, oh, yeah, that actually, operates pretty well within, these gun nuts wonderland, right? The ideal world for a, pro 2A kind of guy. I mean, parents play with their deadly weapons around their children, even infants. And I mean, this might sound terrible, but I've actually heard many responsible gun owners doing essentially the same thing. And not quite the same thing, but sort of, and that is that they get children used to the guns to take away the mystery, right? I mean, children, I have children, I know that, they always want the thing that they can't have. You say, you're not allowed to have that chocolate, right? Well, what are they going to do? They're going to find a way to get the chocolate, right? There's some interesting 3-year-old ninja videos I'm sure you could find of the kids getting the cookies or something like that on top of the fridge. And so if you make it boring, though, if it's just like, oh, yeah, that's dad's gun, that's mom's revolver, who cares? I see them all the time, old news, let's go watch Frozen, right? If you take away the mystery, then the idea is that they're not likely to try to seek them out, to try to get at them. And of course, one of the things that these friends that I have will do is they'll let their children know that they can see, touch, use the guns in age-appropriate ways whenever they ask. So if a kid ever says, hey, can I see your gun? Yes, you can. Let me grab it for you, let me clear it, make sure that it is safe, and I will supervise you as you hold it. And they'll do that. They'll show also the children the seriousness and danger of improper handling of guns. I have a friend who, took his kid shooting and made sure that, the kid essentially got like a little bit scared because it's like, yeah, these are dangerous things. You need to handle them properly. And when they are handled properly, they can be a lot of fun for sporting. They can be a lot of use for hunting. They can be an extra lot of use for self-defense and all that kind of business, but they're a tool, they're not a toy. And so that's the message that is shown there. And of course, it's certainly not the same as shooting puffs of smoke from your gun to amuse a baby. I would highly recommend that you do not use your gun to shoot puffs of smoke at your baby. But of course, us muggles are rather limited in our capabilities. So of course, obviously, the gun is different to the wand in an important aspect. And that is the fact that the gun is simply it's not a multi-tool, right? You really only have one use for it, and that is to shoot projectiles very fast at other things, to destroy stuff, right? We cannot use our concealed carry weapon to prepare food, put up tents, heal wounds. I guess you could shoot your food, right? If you're hunting, then you do that. But again, you're not cooking your food with your gun. So really, the wizard's wand is essentially nothing more than the ultimate multi-tool, which includes the capability of killing. But not just killing, also torturing, manipulating. And I would say that the wizarding wand is actually certainly much more dangerous than your average 9mm. That's what makes, to me, the wizarding world so terrifying. And I'll make another video about why I'm afraid of the wizards. But it's fascinating because the world that Rowling builds isn't really that much more dangerous than our own. In fact, maybe less so, despite the fact that there's dark wizards and foul creatures, and again, everyone walking around with death sticks concealed in their robes. And this is where I'd actually like to ask you guys a little bit. I assume that if you're watching this, you've read Harry Potter or are in some way a fan of Harry Potter, or enjoy the Second Amendment, or hate the Second Amendment, or something like that. Somehow you've got skin in the game. Otherwise, why would you be watching this? Unless, of course, you're my mom. Hi, Mom. But what do you think? I'd like to see some comments, and I'd like to actually have some interesting conversations. It'd be kind of cool to see, where other people see pro-2A, anti-2A arguments that might be present in Harry Potter. It might be an unusual thing. It might be, super old hat and everybody's already done all of this and I'm just now getting on the train. But I'd like to see it, and it'd be kind of neat to, have a cool conversation. Maybe not too many people will just call each other Hitler and that kind of business. So, again, what if? The question is, what if children, and maybe you could try that. I don't know, if you want to try this, you can. But think about this, right? What if children received their first firearm before they entered the 5th grade? That was part of their school list, right? So you got to bring your number 2 pencils, your pencil box, your binder, your they still have Trapper Keepers. Remember, those were pretty cool. Anyway, that right, your backpack, your paper, and a 22 rifle, and all this other stuff, and enough ammunition, of course, to last you the year, maybe like 1,000 rounds or something, so you can have your weekly target practice or something like this, right? And then when you get to school and everything with your backpack and your gun, you begin courses on the proper handling, use, and care of your gun throughout junior and senior high. It'd be an interesting experiment. We homeschool our kids, so maybe we could actually do that and give it a shot. I'll let you know in I don't know, however many years when we turn 11, right? But there you are. What do you think about that? What do you think about Harry Potter and all of the inadvertent pro-Second Amendment arguments located therein? I'd like to know. I'd like to hear a little bit about it. I'm going to go inspect my wand a little bit and see if I actually do have a Hogwarts letter laying around somewhere. Although I probably don't. There's an American school, I think, that's supposed to be in the lore, but I forget the name. Somebody pointed out in a previous video I had said Harry Potter was American literature, and they said, I think Harry Potter would be British literature. And I think it's a Freudian slip, because I like Harry Potter, I'm an American, and so I want it to be mine. And since I'm an American, I can take... No, I'm just teasing. Alright, I wish everybody gladness in your lives. Thank you very much for watching this, and I hope to see you again soon.